I'm Steve Gregorian, President and CEO of the Detroit Economic Club. Welcome to today's special meeting. 92 years of incredible speakers and networking, and that tradition continues today. Especially want to welcome our DEC members. If you're not a DEC member yet, let me convince you, 10 seconds. Your next prospect, client, job, maybe best friend is right here in this room. If you want to build your network and learn from thought leaders on stage, we invite you to invest in you and join today. You can do so at econclub.org. In fact, if you want to do so today on your way out, we'll sweeten the deal. We'll give you a free event ticket you can use through December. So please come and join us if you're not a member. I would ask you, just as we get started, to silence your cell phone so we don't disturb the program. And as you know, we have a tradition of starting with a pledge and a prayer. So please stand and join me as we honor our country with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And kindly remain standing as our invocation today will be delivered by our good friend, Brother Gary Wegner, Executive Director of the Capuchin Soup Kitchen. Brother.
Thank you. As always, it's good to be here. Let us pray. Bountiful God, as someone who hails from Wisconsin, America's dairyland, Michigan rates 7th, and who worked in a cheese factory and served as pastor in a rural parish, it is impossible to ignore that June is Dairy Month. Thank you for the many gifts that you provide us through the humble cow. May we always give thanks to you for milk, ice cream, yogurt, custard, butter, and cheese. These are blessings we sometimes take for granted. Many in our world depend upon the cow for their livelihood. May we build a world, and especially in regions of the world where food is scarce and hunger casts a shadow. May we build a world where those who have much never forget those who have little. Let justice reign and charity fill the gaps. Many among us also mark June as Pride Month. May our LGBTQ sisters and brothers be welcomed, heard, and included in our sacred places. May the prayer attributed to St. Francis of Assisi be our own. Lord, make each of us an instrument of your peace, and where there is hatred, let us sow love. This Friday, our nation once again celebrates Juneteenth, National Independence Day. As we mark the formal end of slavery in America, Lord, help us to remember that freedom, justice, and reconciliation are not achieved in a moment, but through ongoing commitment. Guide our nation to true peace, justice, and freedom for all. Create in our hearts the courage to stand against the forces of injustice, hatred, and prejudice. Help us to love every person and celebrate the inherent dignity of all. And finally, as the world's attention turns to the FIFA World Cup, may this grand sporting event draw us closer in celebration, not only of football or soccer, but of our humanity, and not tear us apart in the dead end of mere nationalism. May we celebrate our common humanity and the amazing talents of our world's most gifted athletes. O God, may the fruits of this global festival of the beautiful game lead us to shalom, salam, shanti, peace. Let harmony and goodwill rain down upon us as we call upon God, the creator of the world and the healer of nations. Amen.
Thank you. You may be seated. Thank you, brother. And thank you for praying for ice cream. I prayed over 3 scoops last night at 11 o'clock, so thank you. No, they weren't, yes. All right, a couple of quick thank yous. Thanks to WJR, who's doing their focus show live in the other room. If you want to stop by and see them after the program, they'll be going for another 30 minutes. Thanks to WDIV and Lawrence Tech University for live streaming today's meeting. Of course, students are here today and always, courtesy of our generous corporate sponsors. Their morning already began with a private reception with Diane. Please hold your applause while I tell you what schools are here today. We've got students from Lawrence Tech University, thanks to Diane and Kevin from KPMG. Students from Schoolcraft College, thanks to the Ford Motor Company. And the DEC hosted a couple of students from Plymouth Canton High School. So please join me in a round of applause as we welcome those students and thank their sponsors. A couple things on your table quickly. Our corporate sponsors and partners, take a look at those. I want to give them a quick shout out. They are the reason we are bringing you a program like today's. So thank you if you're part of those corporate sponsors or partners. If you'd like to become one, we'd love to talk with you afterwards about the great benefits in doing so. Also on your table is our seasonal lineup. And yes, we're winding down, but this spring has been red hot at the DEC, and today is our last regular lunch meeting until September. But I do encourage you to join us on July 22nd for our Chairs Dinner. It's our annual gala fundraiser, and we raise funds for the DEC and our student programs. It's a really, really fun night, and the star power in that room is off the chart. So that's going to sell out quickly, so get your tickets before that does sell out, and we look forward to seeing you there. All right. 92 years of speakers, I mentioned, and those speakers tell the history of our country. Normally, I'm up here with a pretty robust list of speakers that spoke on this specific day, but Diane, you now share this date, June 16, with only one other speaker, and that's Bill Ford, also on this day in DEC history. That's pretty good company. And Diane, this is your third visit to the Detroit Economic Club, 2011, 2020, and today. So congrats, and thanks for being with us today. And finally, we want you to use your smartphone and be involved in today's program. Take lots of pictures, share on your social media networks. And also, you can submit a question for Diane. There's a QR code on your table, and those questions will go to our presiding officer who's about to go to work. Kevin Voigt is the Michigan Managing Partner for KPMG. He's an honorary DEC board member, an amazing supporter of the DEC and me personally, thank you, Kevin, and does so much for so many here in our city, region, and state. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Kevin Voigt.
All right, thanks, Steve, and good afternoon, DEC members and guests. I have the distinct honor of introducing our speaker today, but really, she needs no introduction. Diane Swonk is KPMG's chief economist. She regularly briefs the regional Federal Reserve banks and Board of Governors in Washington, D.C. She also has served as an advisor on a nonpartisan basis to the National Economic Council. Diane is one of the most recognized, respected, and followed economists in the country. I said she needed no introduction, really, because she's not a stranger to us. As Steve mentioned, she has been here before 3 times. She's also knows a little bit about the Detroit area and a lot about Michigan, having been born in Kalamazoo, growing up in Livonia, and receiving not 1, but 2 degrees from the University of Michigan. Any Go Blue out there? Okay, let's keep it down. No, yeah, as well deserved. So our moderator today is Dustin Walsh, a senior reporter from Crain's Detroit Business. Dustin, a graduate from Grand Valley, go Lakers, has covered many issues over the years at Crain's and is a regular columnist on economics, health, labor, and more. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm DEC welcome to Diane and Dustin.
Thank you for being here.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, what'd you do today?
Well, I spent a lot of time in a car driving to my other house in Michigan. I actually have a house in Michigan. I pay taxes here, more than some of you. So, that's good. I'm supporting your economy as much as I possibly can.
I appreciate that.
And my mom is right here, and my stepdad right there.
All right, now we're going to go very, very far away from Michigan. Yesterday, it appears the administration came to some sort of deal that may or may not open the Strait of Hormuz. You just had a report come out. What does this tell us? I mean, can I finally afford to fill up the tank in my truck? I mean, like, what does this mean?
Well, financial markets are moving much faster than physical markets. And in fact, there's still not any traffic really through the Strait of Hormuz, and a lot of the ships that are there are full of barnacles, and it's going to be hard to get them through. They don't expect within months 30 to 50% of what they had in the past. And they are getting some out, but the biggest reason we've not seen higher prices is because China's not been buying. They've been drawing down their inventories.
Sure.
And the problem is we've got inventories really low globally now. Now China still has a cushion, and they've pivoted away, but they're big marginal consumer. It's 3 million barrels a day. I know these stupid facts now about the oil industry.
Right.
I never knew.
Yeah.
But think about what a shock this was. 14 million barrels a day that have been taken out. About 7 million barrels a day are getting out through the bypass pipelines and getting out in other ways. But that's how much we make in the United States total.
Right.
So that's a lot.
That's a lot of catch up.
And what people don't realize is how much collateral damage there is to emerging markets, particularly in Asia.
Sure.
And I wrote about this in my piece that there are people who are out of cooking oil now because of rationing, and they're soaking their rice in cold water to fill their stomachs.
Yep.
And production in Bangladesh, 40 to 50% of what it was, production of rubber gloves in the Philippines being idled because they need the petroleum products and they have rationing. And this is going to get, the scarcities on the ground will get worse before they get better. Now we'll get a little relief, and we already are seeing it at the gas pump, but what we're worried about is a secondary bump.
Right. Things made of petroleum.
Everything refined,
Yep.
all of that still is going to get another bump as they refill some of these inventories. And everyone in the oil industry, and I know a lot of people in the oil industry, and they're warning us that there's going to be another bump in prices before we're done. The good news is, we want to have the Strait open and have things flowing, but we learned in the pandemic, you don't just flip things on and off.
Yeah.
And that's it, just to get a well going, and we don't know what the Iraqi wells are the ones that we don't know a lot about. That's 4 million barrels a day. But it takes weeks to months to get it all going again. And for global oil markets to normalize, that's going to be quarters.
Right. So I will expense that tank of gas to Steve then, is what you're telling me.
Although you have cheaper gas here than we do in Toronto.
Yeah, oh yes.
We always fill up in Michigan.
Well, yeah. Stay a while, So, all right, and you pointed this out in your report as well, but I feel like a lot of people are waiting for the interest rates to go down. And I don't know that that's going to happen, and I don't think people in here are going to like your answer. But give me kind of a sense of what that means.
So the bond market has come off a little bit today.
Yep.
And that's great, but they're a little ahead of themselves, and tomorrow we have a Federal Reserve meeting.
Yep.
The problem is, what we discovered was that underlying inflation before we got to the crisis was still simmering.
Yep.
And we're 5 years in now, and there's a muscle memory of inflation. And that's what the Fed is worried about, the Federal Reserve. And there are some people who would like to hike rates soon.
Yeah.
They've actually used the word soon. I think we have 2 rate hikes in the back half of the year, and that's a hard place to be despite political tensions. And I think that's important because at the end of the day, inflation, much like stock market returns compound and give wealth and make the wealth a bigger sum, prices compound over time. And inflation is a labor market problem. And what we have now is the level of prices are too high for too many and out of reach for too many. And it's why brother who was up here running a food bank, I'm sure you're slammed, donate to your local food banks. The fact that we have people stretched and the food banks are slammed right now, even though the economy is growing.
Yeah.
It gets to these issues of inflation and how it hits those who can afford it least the hardest.
Right, now I want to stay on that sort of track of this idea of inflation. So last week I had retweeted or reposted or whatever you do nowadays about the average car price in the United States. In April it was $51,469. In 2019 it was $39,000. And I posted, like, how can anyone possibly afford a car? That's outrageous. And then our former U.S. Rep, Peter Meyer, and heir to the Meyer grocery fortune, had pointed out to me, he goes, well, that's the same as sort of the median rise in income. And I looked it up, and it was pretty close. It was closer than I thought it was going to be, which is what I want to get to is, why does everything feel so damn expensive if we're sort of all keeping up?
The averages mask the underlying
Correct,
inequality.
yeah.
And so the economic aggregates, we've got 20% of households accounting for more than 50% of consumer spending, 57 to 59%, depending on which estimates you take. That's a lot. The top 20% of households can afford to buy new cars. The fact that people are paying all cash, how many people can walk in and write a $51,000 check? All cash?
Not very many people.
That's why we're selling 16 million unit vehicles instead of 18, like we
Right.
were prior to
Sure.
the pandemic. It is, the inequality issue is one that I'm really worried about. We are now at a place of inequality, on income inequality, and it's even worse with wealth,
Yeah.
that is on par with emerging markets,
Right.
not developed economies. And in fact, we hit a low in inequality in 1980 on income inequalities. In the 1970s were an ugly decade. We had a lot more inflation, we had a lot more unemployment, we had stagflation.
Sure.
But it was a shared pain.
Yeah.
Everybody felt it together.
Yeah.
That is not the case right now.
Right, and I kind of want to explore that a little bit. This idea that inequality is worsening and it's getting worse. You know, this is the business community. What role do they play? What role should they play?
Well, I think firstly, it's very important on how you talk about things. And last year, there was a lot of talk on Wall Street and people making announcements about AI.
Yeah.
And in doing that, we measure uncertainty, because uncertainty, it's a human emotion. You know, when you're uncertain, you seize up, you hesitate.
Yeah, I feel it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you get anxious, right? You know,
Absolutely.
and measures of uncertainty across a lot of them have increased, but measures of uncertainty regarding AI it's like a hockey puck.
Yeah.
It's gone way up, and you can correlate it directly to businesses. I think not wanting to say that tariffs were affecting them, and
Sure.
they're uncertain about how AI might change their entire business models. But in doing that, we went from within less than a year and a half, young people thinking AI was a good thing,
Yeah.
to 89% of new college grads thinking it's going to take their job.
Yeah.
And the backlash is over 1,500 bills already announced at the state and local level to regulate AI in different ways, data centers, and also what does it mean for children? Whenever you bring children into it, turn of the century, the Gilded Age,
Yeah.
the labor movement in part came from children working and being in
Sure.
inhumane conditions.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen data centers sort of take over. I mean, it's probably the biggest story in Michigan right now is these hyperscale, these massive data centers. I have one that's most likely going in just a few miles from my house. We're seeing this mass backlash against it.
Yep.
And you kind of compare that to the post-Gilded Age labor movement, which was strong and often violent. What is the outcome here? Like it feels this uncertainty. I mean, this is more than just the uncertainty, but it feels like there's not a good way off this train that we're on, right? And it does feel like people are getting angrier, and maybe they're just focusing on AI because that's the thing that.
It's become a catch-all. It's sort
Sure.
of like, immigration and trade all in one, and as a scapegoat, and it has become. But I think business community has played a role in that. And like I use AI all the time, and
Yeah.
I use it to level up and do things that are amazing. But I can also afford to do that, and I have a company that's fully vested in that, and I can see what it can do. On the other side of it, and I worry about. I've talked about this, I'm very open about this. I was in the World Trade Center on 9/11, and 20 years later, in the middle of a pandemic, I had cancer everywhere. And, I had a lot of surgeries, but if I could have detected some of that stuff with what's coming out with AI, that's amazing. That would be that's phenomenal.
Right.
What I don't like is how some of the technology community is talking with these Armageddon, with their universal basic income. There's a dignity in work. We define ourselves.
Sure.
It's part of our identity. And you cannot eliminate everybody's jobs, and nor do I think it will, But you can't do that and have a functioning economy. And you need to be able, the imbalance between, I call it my revolutionary chart, the labor share of income versus the profit share.
Yeah.
And, owners of capital have reaped a lot of benefits.
100%.
Which means we need to have more owners of capital. And I'm really big on ESOPs, employees.
Yeah, I do want to get into ESOPs for sure.
But
I mean,
the fact that workers have not been able to participate in this, I heard a friend of mine, Ian Brummer, who's at Eurasia Group, refer to it as, this is when the pitchforks come out.
right.
And, we need to deal with these issues because inequality is socially unstable and there's a social contract and we've broken a lot of them.
Right.
And we need to be thinking more holistically about how do we include people in these decisions, and people have to be a part of the decision making.
Sure.
And that's what I worry about, is that we're not having these conversations. And even companies, we deal with companies all the time, and they're like, we're not sure what this is going to mean, and that's because it's really hard. Nobody's quite sure.
Right.
But instead of just thinking about how many people you're going to take out, think about how your business is going to grow.
Right.
And when you start flipping it around, that's when it's productive. But it also means, how are you going to level up people so you can pay them more? We have to think about these things, and you can't just. I say this often because it really bothers me. Is that there's one of my partners who's on our board. He was really upset after a meeting in Silicon Valley, and the guy gave a presentation, and the presentation was eliminate blood workers for GPUs.
That's a pretty offensive word, blood
It
workers.
was that's human beings. These
Right.
are people.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen at the Chicago Economic Club, the head of the CEO of Costco was one of the more eloquent people I've ever heard who talked about
Sure.
AI, and he talked about his workers, and he talked about how he pays his workers really well, and they're part of his assets because they make their money with the memberships, and they keep people coming in, and and he talked about how he was never going to lose a job to AI with his workers. And he was going to be he's having them level up from it. And he also was never going to let AI pick a SKU for him. They only have 4,000 at Costco. But it was interesting was how he was talking about how great his workers were. And I'm like, I'm in an audience with like 3,500 people, and I'm ready to start clapping because he's talking about his workers and how great they are. And it took a minute for the crowd to let it set in that was a good thing.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm a labor economist, and we need to be thinking holistically about what this means for our economy and for our businesses, because our workers are our assets.
Right. Well, it's a scary thought. Like, I mean, if the world of AI is to be believed and how much it can do, which I don't know that I believe that, but play it out in your head, you're talking about 5 to 7 companies essentially sucking the wealth into Silicon Valley, into New York, into Austin, into these hubs that are basically going to be the size of nations as far as GDP goes.
Some of them already are.
Huh?
Some of them already
Some
are.
of them already are. And so there's this zapping of the wealth. I mean, what is it going to do to rural Kansas or mid-Michigan? And so I think that's the scary thought, and that's sort of what you're seeing this revolt against, right? Oracle went and threw a data center in Saline Township in the middle of farmland, which I think challenges their identity.
Absolutely.
And I think that's why maybe they started with the wrong one, or whatever. But that's sort of it creates the seething effect that we're seeing in the community. And so I do wonder, what is the way out of this? Is it only policy driven? Is it individual driven? How do you talk about inequality without a sigh? You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I try to talk. I mean, it is what it is. It's real.
Sure.
It's politically unstable.
Yeah.
It is people's identity. It's why I became an economist growing up in Detroit and seeing the devastation. My best friend went into poverty when I was a kid. My mom gave me extra money because she couldn't afford lunch.
Yeah.
Those things are important to me, and I don't think you have to pick a side. I think you have to think of, we're now at a place where inequality is more corrosive than conducive to growth. And as an economist, and someone who believes in markets and believes in market economies, that's not good. You know, when you can only sell vehicles to the top 20% of earners, that's going to limit the number of vehicles you can sell. And you know what we need to have is an economy that works more for more people.
Yeah.
And that's, thank you. It's important, you know, and you know, I think people forget about the idea of when I hear these silly things like universal basic income and
Sure.
just, you know, let them eat cake. Well, we know how that ended. I don't want to go there. We're getting too close. This
Yeah.
is a societal problem. This is all of our problems. And, you know, people live in their bubbles. My husband always gets upset because, you know, we have I pay taxes in Michigan. You know, I grew up here and I have this place over on the other side of the state. And I'm always going into, I went to the dollar store and pick up stuff, but I want to talk to the person behind the tape, you know, behind the counter.
Sure.
And I talk to people and I'm, you know, trying to find out where people are at.
Yeah.
Because that's important, right? You know?
100%.
And my husband always gets upset. He grew up on a farm, also with very little. And, you know, but he's like, no, I can't stand, you're going to come home with a story. I know you're going to come home with a story. And, you know, I mean, you know, here I was in the dollar store and the woman, she was lovely and she was, you know, running around like crazy. And she goes, I made the schedule and I screwed up and it's Sunday and everybody's here and, you know, I'm the only one working. And I said, no, you're doing great. And she didn't have any teeth. And that struck me.
Yeah.
And I thought about this because I had a very personal thing that happened. My daughter's fiance was riding his bike in New York, and a guy deliberately tried to hit him, then got out and punched him in the face and knocked out his 2 teeth in the last couple weeks. And I had him in a dental, you know, in one of the best cosmetic dentist's chair after he was through the emergency room and the police report, and he is going after him. The next day, and he's already got his two teeth in his mouth again.
Yep.
And that's because I could do that.
Yeah, in 12 hours. Done.
Done. And, you know, I text my dentist who happened to be a cyclist and has known me forever, and he got a dentist, and, you know, I got it connected. I have those connections. Not everybody does.
Most.
And when I go in, and I won't say the store, I was in another store not too far from my house, and my husband's like, oh, you got another story. And I was watching someone buy their heart medication, 1 pill at a time.
Right.
And they worked at the store.
Yeah.
And then they asked if they could, and they were ahead of me, I had gotten a prescription changed there. And it was a big box retailer. And then they said, you know, I've got a discount, can I get my dinner? And it was 2 candy bars.
Right.
And I thought, well, that's why they didn't have any teeth.
Yeah.
But, you know, it also, that's what she was going to eat for dinner, and here she was trying to get her heart medicine.
Yeah.
You know, and it's hard.
Right.
You know, but this is what we're dealing with now, and the fact that food banks are slammed
Yeah.
is a big issue. And you know, I'm a big person on. I was one of the first deficit hawks I think there ever was, and Social Security, because we've changed the math on it. I mean, we're now. So deaths will outnumber births in 2030 now, according to the Congressional Budget Office. That's 10 years earlier than they thought.
Yeah.
And the Social Security Trust Fund, which means the number of people paying into Social Security because of changes in births and deaths, and also changes in immigration policy.
Yep.
Because immigrants pay in, foreign-born pay in, but they can't mostly pull out. There are very few can pull out. So as a result, it's moved up by 10 years, from 2042 to 2032, and that's assuming immigration this year is back to historic norms, which I don't think it will be.
Right.
And so, you know, we're doing things that are really putting our financial future, it's not all of a sudden 30 years down the road.
Right.
That's 6 years away,
Yeah.
and that's real.
Yeah, I'm not retired in 6 years, so that concerns me.
Well, you know, old economists never retire, we just die.
Well,
so, you know,
fair
and
enough.
I plan to stay here for a while longer, but I fought real hard to be here right now. So.
I want to stay at the top for a while. I get it. There's a lot to unpack there, but I do want you brought up ESOPs in the call before. I saw you bring it up in the discussion with students, and you mentioned it here. Let's discuss that, because that does seem like a sort of a logical, without abandoning capitalism or fundamentally changing.
No, it's
what
actually
we're
part
doing.
of capitalism. So,
Right.
Yeah.
So it seems like a pretty a small step, but you have to convince sort of the ownership class to go down that path. What could it do if we saw sort of a mass adoption of ESOPs? I mean, obviously, giant public companies aren't it, but small businesses,
Yeah.
500 people, 1,000 people
Mid-sized
below
companies.
is the whole,
Yeah.
is sort of the whole boat here in the United States. So how do you incentivize that?
Well, I think it's one of those things of this is survival, right? And ESOPs means everyone's got skin in the game. It means all your workers are aligned with you
Sure.
in ways that they wouldn't necessarily be. And instead of making enemies of your workers, you've now made them partners.
Right.
And to me, that's a win-win.
Sure.
And I happen to have a friend who does a lot of ESOPs.
Yeah.
And a lot of mid-sized companies that she takes with ESOPs, and the results are really pretty powerful.
Yeah, we've seen the data. ESOPs typically outperform
Yeah. And so you
Fortune
want,
500
I mean,
companies.
so if you're a C-suite, you want to be in that,
Sure.
And I often say, like in the 90s is when we challenged the idea that you could just pick your successor, and actually it really was with GM in the 1993 contract, the UAW contract in 1993, and one of my former CEOs was on the board that let the CEO of GM go.
Sure.
Because they didn't like the contract that they signed with the UAW.
Yeah.
And betting on a recovery that wasn't as strong as it was going to be
Sure.
at the time. And I think back on that all of a sudden CEO tenure dropped quite dramatically in the 90s. And so what they did was CEOs got 30-year compensation packages in 3 years because their
Yeah.
tenure went down. Well, the inequality then, just exploded. And, there was a movement to try to have people paid in stock and more in stock. I got paid in stock.
Sure.
But that's because I worked for a financial institution.
Right.
We need to think more about having people all on the same page working towards the same goal.
Right.
And it's not, I'm not talking about communism. I'm not talking about getting rid of markets. I'm talking about saving markets,
Sure.
and making sure that the economy is stronger.
Yeah.
And functions for more people. I mean, when we should be having growth should be a lot stronger than it is, and it's not because
Yeah.
of the inequalities. And when that's the counterfactual. I know that that's hard to get your head around, but when you've only got 20% of the population carrying the economy, and the bottom 80% seeing their wages erode relative to inflation,
Right.
that is not a good place to be.
Correct. Well, let's skip over to you because I want to make sure we get this in. This is Detroit, this is Michigan. USMCA is due up for its first annual review or first review in July.
Yeah.
There's some push to make the reviews annual, I believe.
Yes. They want to make them annual,
And
which destabilizes the whole idea.
yeah,
of
I'll
free
let you go.
trade.
Go ahead, talk about that.
I'm an economist. I'm sorry. I like trade. I like free trade. I like, and we've had a free trade agreement with Canada since the 1960s. They don't feel like that right now. But, it's so integrated in our auto industry.
Yeah.
This is for the vehicle industry. This is for this region of the country. To think that you're going to go under annual reviews, and what the administration would like to do is bilateral instead of multilateral negotiations, because they feel they have more leverage that way. Already, there's a new round of tariffs coming to backfill what got lost to the Supreme Court, and they will be challenged as well because they've never been.
232s.
Yeah, I can do them all. I know all the numbers now. 232 is the national security. By the way, your kitchen cupboards, they're a national security threat.
Yep.
That's why they're, if you import kitchen cupboards, they're tariffed. But this is important because USMCA is so critical to this part of the country, and what I really worry about is not just the additional tariffs that they've already said are going to go in August. On top of that, it's not too much because so much gets in through USMCA. About 90% of all goods come in that way, but the content rules for the vehicle industry.
Right.
75% North American content. They want to change those rules.
Yeah.
And they want to increase the content of North American, but they want to particularly increase the content of US.
Yeah.
And I was, wasn't that great? Well, if we don't have the capacity here and we can't afford to do it, no, it's not. And it really is already causing a lot of pain for a lot.
Well, and then it'll lead to more low-cost factories, low-wage factories.
or automated.
Or automated.
You
right.
know, I mean, you can't, you know, I mean, it's a, you know, there's behind the glass, you know, and the factories are the skills that people need to work
Yeah.
in factories. So it really is I understand the impetus, and trade is trade-offs, and I think as someone who worked on NAFTA originally and got death threats when I was pregnant with my daughter, that was a lot of fun. I understand very much that we didn't fulfill. Nordic countries are really good at retraining people. We didn't. We said, and then they said, well, nobody wanted retraining. And I'm like, you know, we know as a labor economist, one of the things we studied, and this is generational now, we know that men in particular will not take a cut in pay.
Yeah.
And when they are unemployed long periods of time, we know, because we've studied it now, and we've got a lot of evidence, particularly from this part of the country, that their physical health and their mental health deteriorated, their families broke apart, and their children suffered. And that created a vicious cycle of poverty. And that's what I worry about, is that, you know, we've created these problems, and you can say, well, we keep kicking the can down the road, but at some point in time, something's got to give.
Right.
And I don't want to see it be in pitchforks. And frankly, you know, I know how the let them eat cake ended.
Yes.
And I don't really want that to
Sure.
be the ending. And I think that there is an opportunity to step into valuing workers and still having people being plenty wealthy.
Right.
It's not, I'm not against that, but I think we need to be able to have a more even
Yes.
deal.
What is our outlook then? You put out your outlook, you know, it's got some, you know, I mean, it covers a lot, but even if it's positive, will it feel positive?
That's a great question. Is I constantly say this, the decoupling we've seen between consumers' assessment of the economy.
Right. Lowest it's ever been, the sentiment,
Yeah,
consumer sentiment.
bumped up like a little tiny bit with gas prices coming down at the pump, but you know, but it's record lows on
Yep.
on attitudes. Attitudes have never recovered to pre-pandemic levels on all the measures, and that's because of inequality. Because you have too small of a group carrying the overall, and the bulk of people, even if you have a job, you feel like you're losing ground because of the erosion to your purchasing power due to the cumulative effect of inflation.
Yeah, for sure.
And that is, you know, the level of prices is too high and too out of reach for too many. And those are things that is why we're seeing this disconnect, where it started in 2022, where the majority of Americans thought we were in a recession, and we were generating hundreds of thousands of jobs, millions a year. I mean, we were trying to come out of the pandemic. It was a hiring frenzy. It was crazy.
Yeah.
It was incredible. And people felt we were in a recession because inflation soared. And it was, I often say, you know, we had workers that were all of a sudden became essential workers in the pandemic, and they had been in the shadows of the economy, came out into the sun, only to be burned by inflation.
Right.
And that is where they still are.
Yeah. All right, we only have a minute left, so I want to end on a positive note. Everyone here just started eating their dessert and like, who cares? We're all doomed. So,
There's shots afterwards.
yeah. So I want to end on a positive. What is one positive thing you see happening in the economy, even better if it's in the labor economy?
You know, I am amazed when we get to talk to students earlier. The students are here. I mentor a lot of young people. I work with a group called the Posse Foundation. It's just amazing. I am amazed at young people. I sit and talk with my kids. We debate all the time. Healthy debate. I learn from them. I was never as smart as that. I am just so impressed with the next generation. And I feel bad because when I sat with my first graduation at Michigan, Walter Cronkite came, and he was sick. And he was the speaker, and there's a written document that was supposedly a speech, but he was too sick to give it.
Yeah.
He had the flu. They flew him into the stadium in a helicopter. He got out and he said, "We screwed it up. It's your job to fix it." I failed. And I feel that every day for my kids. And my kids are out there trying to make it a better world. And I really respect that and am humbled by it. But I see it in so many young people. It is really, it is what I have hope on, because they see the world in its entirety, and they're worried about these things.
Yeah.
You know, my son, he was a computer science major, and he's now teaching autistic children. And I couldn't be more proud of him.
Yeah.
And he said, I feel like I have something that fills my cup every day. And it's hard.
Yes, it is.
He's learning sign language, he's learning Spanish. They sign because, you know, with the noise canceling headphones, it helps because they can't speak.
Yep.
And they can communicate. And that, you know, unlocking that and seeing that,
Yeah.
that there's people committed to that. That's hopeful. And that's not just my son. I meet so many young people that are like that. And they all are thinking much more multidimensionally and, you know, doing things that I think are just amazing.
Awesome. That's awesome. All right. Please, everyone, thank Diane tonight. And thank you. Oh, there's a voice right behind us.
And an amazing discussion,
Do I
folks.
leave, or do
You are staying here, pal. Neither of your work is done yet. So Fast and Furious has been the DEC members and guests. They've been typing up questions. That's averaging a half a question per person, which is actually pretty significant. But you guys did a great job of covering a lot of them already. So I've triaged them a bit, and a couple that maybe we touched around but maybe didn't hit squarely, I'm going to ask them now. So long-term debt of the U.S. You touched a little bit on Social Security. You touched a little bit on your position as a historic deficit hawk.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that and any concerns you may have that relative to the absolute size of the debt right now?
So I have a lot of concerns about debt. We're over at 100% of debt to GDP. We've eclipsed the size of the economy this year for the first time since World War II. That's insane. What's going on, you know? When I look at, it's important, and it's, you know, we all like tax cuts. We all want a smaller government. However, we have certain obligations out there, and cutting Medicaid and SNAP and 350,000 fewer federal workers has done nothing to stop the rise in federal deficits. And that's a problem. And when you see that tipping point coming on Social Security, you know, it was originally designed to keep older people from not having to live in poverty in the end of their lives. If I don't save enough after what I've done in my life, that's my fault. I was privileged and lucky, and I have enough to live on. I don't need Social Security. I had this discussion with my husband, and he said, well, you know, I paid in all my life. And I'm like, John, third time's a charm, by the way. John, I said, you know, sweetie, when in the year did you stop paying in? My husband was a CEO. He grew up on a farm. He was a self-made man, but, you know, I'm like, you didn't pay all in, and do you need to collect it? And he said, no, I don't need that. And I said, that's the point, is what is it for? And we need to start thinking about what are our priorities. You know, school lunches and food at schools. Hungry kids don't learn. I actually had someone say to me, we shouldn't be feeding these kids because it makes their parents not want to work. I'm like, the economic study on that is? That's not true.
Right.
I know what the economics are. That's not true at all. I mean, there's some things that, you know, oh, by the way, what is the one thing the Congressional Budget Office scores that employment at the IRS? So in the 2010s, the $600 billion a year, $700 billion a year, that's about what we don't collect in taxes. We could have balanced our budget just by collecting what was owed legally alone.
Right.
So these don't make sense to me. Like, you know, like let's like sit down and think about just the things that make sense. And, you know, that's not what we're doing. We're just, you know, ignoring it. And we had an exorbitant privilege by having a reserve currency, which is getting some dings in its armor. We're still got a lot of privilege. That's holding interest rates down lower than they otherwise would be. But it's not going to be that way always. And already the interest expense in the debt is one of the fastest growing parts of our debt deficit. So I worked on that. I met Jay Powell former Fed chairman, on the bipartisan effort to reduce the deficit. He was working for the Bipartisan Policy Center at the time. And he was so cute. When he first went to the Fed, he came over and goes, "Diane, we met before." And I'm like, "Jay, you're a governor now." "Yeah, I know." And Jay he's a Jesuit. He's a very, very devout guy. He would go out to the homeless camps next to the Fed, where they're working homeless, without cameras, to find out what their lives were like. Yep. But in 2010, 28-year-olds are going to have to work to 68. And that was fought. Mm-hmm. And those 28-year-olds didn't think they were going to get Social Security anyways.
Yeah.
And we're not really taking account of all these things. Mm-hmm. And there's reasonable ways to be thinking about this stuff, that it shouldn't take a crisis, but sadly, it usually does.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to maybe a different question. First-time home buyers. It's a challenge for them out there, young families who feel locked out of home ownership. What has to change for housing to become a little bit more affordable for folks like that?
Well, that's a lot has to change, although at least we're in an affordable region of the country. People are actually moving back to the Midwest because it's more affordable. Today, I looked at the housing starts data came out. Multifamily housing starts fell 41% from a year ago. Mm-hmm. Just stunning decline. Single-family housing starts were really low too. We're completing homes faster than we're building them right now. Mm-hmm. And the existing housing stock has gotten very old. And one of the biggest problems is the mortgage lock-in, is that people are locked into a mortgage rate and they can't afford a new mortgage rate, even though they've got equity in their homes. And it's not just the mortgage rate. It is all of the above. It's the insurance, it's the real estate costs, which have gone up with home values with a lag. All of that together has made it very unaffordable. And I think, I bought my first house when I was 26 years old. And didn't stay in it very long because that was the son my father always wanted. But my first husband. But, that being able to do that is not something people can do at that age anymore. And the average age of home buyers has moved up. It's not as old as the National Association of Realtors says it is, but the bottom line is people are feeling locked out of getting those rungs on the ladder of building wealth. And housing wealth is the largest, wealth for most households. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of things we need to tackle on zoning, on how to build, on where to build, on how to do it, density. In 1974, I think we had 144,000 2 and 3 flats that we built. Mm-hmm. We're building less than 15,000 a year now. Yeah. And that's often how many people who came to this country, they would, pool their money, rent to part of it, or have their family in a multifamily. And nobody wants not in my backyard a 2 or 3 flat. Yet that is the way to home ownership and wealth building. That's how we did it. And it actually, more dense, is more economically, environmentally solvent. It's also better for neighborhoods. It turns out when we made sprawling suburbs, people got really lonely. Sure. And I happen to live in an area where, the houses are very close together, and our neighbors, I will not leave my neighborhood, I love it because we have block parties, we all know each other, and we all watch out for each other. But the houses are very close together, and they're not big, huge McMansions.
Well, we know the importance of economic diversity within communities.
Right, exactly, and that, to me, that is something that, not in my backyard is what we hear all the time, sure. But that is something we need to fight.
All right, we're going to pivot now to what we call the lightning round. Having been a veteran here, Diane, what's about to happen. We're going to ask you some quick questions and very brief, generally speaking, one-word answers, but we'll see. There could be some needing explanation. First off, describe Detroit in one word.
Childhood.
Love it, love it. Dustin, you can play too, by the way.
Oh, describe Detroit in one word?
Yep.
Better than Chicago.
That's spelled B. Okay, yeah, I got it. Okay, gotcha.
All one word, hashtag.
Exactly, yes. Your first car.
So the first car I drove, my mom let me drive, was a 74 Opel. My dad worked for GM. That was when Opel was selling in the United States. It was red, and it only went 40 miles per hour on the highway, which I think is why my mom used to say, park it in the front, like let someone hit it. Because I learned how to jump start a car. My girlfriend and I would jump start that car because it would die all the time. So that was my first car. And my mom gave us paint when I graduated high school, and we painted it up. The 80s ladies all painted up. I still have a picture of it. But it was red, and it used to, when my mom got it, it had a bike flag on the back because my mom and I both have a spatial problem. And so my dad wanted people to see her coming. And I happened to hit the garage. I don't hit my husband's car. I don't drive very much. But it was red for a reason, so that people would notice it. Sorry about that, Mom.
Red Opel and?
89 Oldsmobile Calais Supreme that I totaled on my second day of driving. Drag racing in the country is not.
See, we weren't going to go as to why, but you went there anyway. All right. The statute of limitations has expired, so don't worry about that. Okay. Advice to your 25-year-old self.
You don't have to do it so fast. By the time I was 25, I already had one graduate degree, was working on the second graduate degree at University of Chicago, working, married, soon getting divorced. I was trying to do everything so fast. And I watch my kids, and they learn from me to not do it as fast. And they're great. And I wish I had slowed it down a bit.
There you go.
She has such an eloquent answer that I feel like saying buying stock in NVIDIA is about, you know.
Not totaling your car on the second day? I don't know.
Yeah, right, well, sure.
I've totaled a couple cars,
Yeah.
too,
I think just stop taking everything so seriously, I think would be for me.
including yourself, right?
Love it.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't take myself seriously at all.
Yeah. I stopped a long time ago. So.
Love that answer. Okay. Let's show a little bit of appreciation for Dustin and Diane. And Steve is gonna close us out.
Thank you, Kevin. Yes. Thank you, Kevin. Diane, you're always fascinating and informative. Thanks so much for being with us, and let's do this again.
Yes.
Please, yes. Thank you. Kevin, Dustin, thanks for your important roles today. And you guys, ladies and gentlemen, tell your friends to join the Detroit Economic Club. I want you to enjoy your summer. Hopefully we'll see you at the Chairs Dinner on July 22nd. On time, every time. This meeting of the Detroit Economic Club is now adjourned. Thank you. Happy summer.